Hello, my name is Andres Cuervo. Welcome to Beyond the Scenes. This is a space where I interview my friends, people from the film industry, creatives in general, and we talk about life, things that are beyond what we do on set. And today I have my good friend Scott Wellington here with me at the studio. Awesome. Thank you.
How's it going? Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. Great.
In Miami, they say Scott Wellington. Scott.
Oye, Scott. Oye, Scott. Quiero un cafecito.
Un cafecito, por favor. Like you, I'm also, well, you lived in Miami. You're from Colombia, right?
Yes.
I'm born and raised in Miami. So, but you did have time in Miami.
Oh, yeah. Over 12 years in Miami.
So this is officially the 305 and the 404 right now.
Whoa, there you go. So Scott, we met in Miami
Many years ago.
But we come from Miami, right? And the Miami scene.
In Miami, te amo.
So how is Miami different for you than like Georgia or other markets?
Well, may I preface this with I call myself a gringo judío, right?
Okay.
That means for those at home that don't speak Spanish, the white Jewish guy in Spanish,
There
right?
you go.
Basically. Or the cracker Jewish guy. I guess it's kind of how the Españoles mean it, right?
Yeah.
But growing up in Miami, I guess is like it's the only third world, first world city in the country, right? I mean, I'm sure there's cities out there that still have brown water in them, and I feel really bad for those cities. But Miami is one of those cities where you need a passport. I mean, I'm sorry, you need to speak Spanish to walk into any restaurant or store or anything like that. So
Because it's more north of South America than south of the U.S.
Yeah, it's definitely the capital of Latin America, like business-wise. Like in general, every major corporation has their Latin American market in Miami, and coming up in Miami in production, all of the Spanish red carpet premieres are in Miami. All of the Spanish news outlets are there.
Premios Juventud,
Right.
Premios Lo Nuestro.
And I've worked all those jobs. I think we all kind of have to have one toe in the Latin film market in Miami if you're going to keep working. I will say this about coming up in Miami. There's no pigeonholing yourself. You can't just be like, oh, I only do commercials. I mean, you can. And if you're there at that level, you'll succeed. But getting to that level is really difficult, I think. And so you end up doing a lot of different things. So reality shows, corporate, documentary, feature films. When I was a production assistant, there was still a lot of cinema, like shooting in Miami. So I was part of Red Eye with Wes Craven. I was part of the original, well, not the original, but the first Miami Vice movie. With Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx.
Yes.
So I was a production assistant back then. So I got started working on films and commercials, and then ended up falling into reality for several years. Reality shows took off 2006, I think, and like that was the work that was being offered, and
all the Bravo, the networks that dedicated just exclusively also to reality shows.
And also like I feel like a lot of film style shoots, you really have to put your nose to the grindstone and just kind of take a number and wait in line till you're given an opportunity to become a camera operator or even a second or first AC, to go up from PA in a real production environment. It takes a couple things, right? It takes somebody believing in you and giving you the chance. But then also like all these professionals that do this for years and that's all they do because they've pigeonholed themselves, don't really like sharing or like don't really, I don't know, like maybe it's a matter of you're taking from them, that's their livelihood.
You know, some people are very inspired because they're passionate about the process of filmmaking. And for some others, it's just, this is how I pay my bills, a job. And I feel like for the people that are very passionate, community is also very important, For the people that might not be the first motivation and, this is my job, just like anybody in any other job, it's just like safeguarding that.
There's friends that just give friends work and they only hire their friends and that's it. Unless you become friends with that person, you're not getting into that crew. Yeah, I don't know. It takes a lot to prove yourself in certain roles. And I guess being given the opportunity is the first hurdle to overcome, really.
I don't know about you, but my inspiration for filmmaking came from growing up in what we will call now the golden age of movies.
Absolutely.
You know, some of my first movies were like the Goonies.
What
Goonies was
what
one
was the first movie you saw in the theaters?
I don't know if you remember this,
No.
but it's The Gods Might Be Crazy.
Okay.
You don't remember?
That was like an 80s movie,
Yes.
right? What?
It's this movie about the Bushmen in Africa, and there is a Coca-Cola bottle that falls from the sky. And it's like a mockumentary kind of. It's
Okay.
comedy, but it's also documenting the
remember
life.
seeing this. I just
Man,
don't remember.
that was just remarkable because it was very. It reminds me now of the Italian neorealism filmmaking, where they have actors that are not trained actors; they're just like regular people acting in the major roles. So this was this Bush person, you know, never been on camera, and then acting in front of the camera. And like, I don't know, that was very interesting for me to see that. So that's the first movie that I remember was The Gods Might Be Crazy.
But you mentioned Goonies a second ago. I'm a big Goonies fan. Never Say Die. I don't know how I feel about them making a part 2 40 years later.
No, I don't think. Or making it a series now.
Right. Because like Goonies now would never happen because they would just have their phones out looking for directions the entire time. They would
But you
never be
know,
lost.
when I looked at Stranger Things, I love the show.
Yeah,
It always
great show.
resembles like that Goonies.
But the Duffer Brothers
spirit.
are huge Goonies fan. Like you could tell it oozes
Yeah.
Ghostbusters and Goonies and Cocoon and like kind of all the 80s. It just has that 80s haze to it.
I know.
Like,
All the,
you know,
my
and
kids.
even more brown and mustard yellow. I think they don't put enough orange, brown, and yellow in the set dressing. I don't think anyone remembers
Yeah.
the amount of brown that was everywhere in the 80s. Like, you walked into McDonald's, that place was orange and brown. Or was it Burger King? One of the,
Yeah.
let's see. It was like, it was a lot more brown, a lot less pink and blue. They used a lot of pink and blue.
Yes. Now,
My favorite, my first movie was Bambi in the theater. I remember seeing Bambi 5 years old in the movie theaters. That's how old. I'm dating myself. 79 right here. Okay. Gen X.
82.
Okay, I got a couple of years on you, Mike.
But
But I've never seen Goonies in the theaters.
yeah.
And E.T. in the theaters. And growing up, you know, reading Jurassic Park at 13 years old and then watching it in the theaters and having nightmares at night, seeing Velociraptor shadows. So, I mean, coming up, Spielberg was a huge impact on movie making back then, you know? I think so.
Did you start making your own little films or anything when you were young?
The first time I was a kid actor.
Okay.
So I did like, when I was like 8 or 9, I was doing like puppet shows and clowning, and then I got into magic, and not The Gathering, but magic, like being an actual like magician, like close-up magic, and I would perform at kids' parties, and then around the age of 11, a friend of mine, I was an actor too, like in plays, and a friend of mine had a little camera, and it recorded on cassette tapes. This was before mini DV.
Oh,
but it would make SD video. It was like, I don't remember who
like
made it.
V8.
Like a V8, like a high 8, but like on an audio cassette tape, it would record video. And I remember that being like the first time I ever made a short film was on this thing. And we edited it like in camera.
Yeah.
And I remember ever since then, I started picking up my parents' video cameras and making like films with my friends in high school. Now these are all like not appropriate for children.
Okay.
But they were funny.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, a little Fast Times at Richmond High kind of vibe, maybe a little Cheech and Chong kind of vibe to them. But, and they were ridiculous and campy, but they were fun. And so I've had a camera in my hand since I'm 15. And kind of like this dream, this huge dream to like, oh, one day I'm going to be a director. I'm going to make a movie. But how do you get there? You know, like Steven Spielberg's not going to call me tomorrow and say, hey, kid, here's $5 million. Go make a film. That's not going to happen. But if you're passionate about this, you can definitely make it into a living. But there has to be some sort of balance there, right? I mean, like, and then there's this need to satiate our drive to be creative, balanced with this need to pay our bills and put clothes on our back and foods on our table. And so that's always a challenge, right? And so I haven't made something personally for myself creatively in 10 years, like as far as a short film's concerned. I mean, I think the last time I did a short film was in a 48-hour film festival. That was like for me.
Yeah.
I want to do one now. I'm gonna do one before the end of the year.
Cool.
But also, like, I think that I've built up my skills to a different level where I can produce something that's more commercial level versus amateur.
Now, you took that passion of loving movies, loving that whole atmosphere into a career because you went to school for film.
I did. I graduated from FIU in 2003 in TV production. I did go to Florida State for a couple of years to try to get into film school. It didn't work out.
No.
Well, it was the late 90s, and it was the rave era.
The party life.
It was the party life. And, but then it's okay, because everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved back home to Miami from FSU in 1989, and I met my wife. Was my girlfriend at the time. And she said, if you want to date me, you got to go back to school.
Really?
Really?
Like that? Is
like
she
that.
Cuban?
She's very
There you go.
Yeah. And so I did that. I went back to school. And a couple semesters in Miami-Dade, and then FIU. And FIU has this weird thing where you take film classes through the literary program for the English department. So I wrote about movies. I deconstructed them. I shot a couple like shorts for school, and then FIU also has this journalism and mass communications program. So you learn how to switch cameras in a TV studio and how to produce news stories. The biggest thing I learned how to do in school was how to edit on a nonlinear editing system. So back then it was Velocity DPS, which I'm dating myself again, but right after that, Final Cut took over. So.
Oh, but you were doing NL. I was doing VHS to VHS.
So we did that in high school. That's how we made our short films with our VHS-C cameras.
Like pause.
Right.
Then
My
rewind.
buddy did all the editing for me on that one. But yeah, no, I think that learning how to edit was a great start on how to learn how to shoot.
Yeah. I think you can be very productive when you shoot economically with the mindset of this is how it's going to be edited, almost like with the edit in mind. Because nowadays, in the era of digital filmmaking, since you don't have film and you're not constrained to the role that you have,
right?
Many times it's just people shooting, overshooting. And then it makes it even harder when you're going to go in.
I think a lot of reality shows suffer from this problem, right?
Yeah.
A lot of inexperienced producers have their camera operators constantly shooting. Like, don't stop shooting. Don't put the camera down. Always roll. I think two things happens there. I think you're exhausting your operators. I think you're exhausting your talent. They're always on. They never get like a couple minutes to themselves, which we all need to process our emotions. But I also think that you're giving your editors a huge task in finding like quality content. Whereas like if you're more decisive with what you're going to cover, I think everyone, because filmmaking or TV production is such a team sport, that I think everyone is happier because then there's realistic goals. Then you're not just like kind of like burning through tape all the time. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from reality TV now that I'm looking towards my future and wanting to create my own content, is knowing when to shoot and knowing when not to shoot. Like if you're doing a doc and they get off subject, like, and it's not going to make the final cut, why are you going to roll on it? Like, what is it going to do for you?
And sometimes you have to almost like read the room or even be sensitive to what's going on, because there's some subjects and some situations where putting down the camera and listening to the person and gaining confidence will later on benefit you from when you have the camera on.
Sure.
Almost like have the empathy to understand, okay, this is a moment where it is better to put my camera out. Or sometimes you show it to a place, a location, with the camera and already all the crew, people immediately react differently than if you show up, kind of get the report, and then you bring the camera on as well.
I find myself having to do a lot of producer-shooter stuff in my life, especially in the corporate world where I'm conducting my own interviews and stuff like that, or in doc stuff, where you have to have that human connection to get anything that's worth using.
Of course.
Because people freeze. They see a camera, they see lights, they and that doesn't work for us, right? It doesn't work for the editor. It doesn't work for the producers. It doesn't work for the client. So yeah, there is that sense of not coming in guns blazing, coming in and kind of like establishing yourself, like you're saying, and developing that rapport with whoever is going to be in front of your camera. I think is super important. I'm not saying you have to be best friends with whoever's in front of your lens, but you should at least have some sort of mutual respect and admiration for them, and more than anything, gratitude. I think for me, gratitude is a huge theme in my life, in my career, in my life outside of production. I'm grateful for everything that I have. And I'm even grateful for this time we have right now together, because I know that we both have other responsibilities. Yeah. So, I think coming from a place of gratitude is a great place to begin when you're behind the lens or in life in general.
One of the things that I see is we don't work in very long commitment projects.
No,
like
at all.
Yeah.
I'm lucky if it goes past one day.
Okay. And the most I work on a project sometimes is like 6 months on the road. But
same. I think the longest project I've done is my feature doc, and it was 6 months.
Yeah.
Go watch it on Amazon right now. It's called Magic City Hustle. But I'm just saying,
and I worked 3 years on a documentary, but it was like on and off. It wasn't
short.
Which working in long form projects always places a lot of pressure, especially when you're distanced from your family. And in my case, it took me to a place where I had to deal with my mental health and everything.
But you have young kids, though.
Yeah. But my question is, like, how do you deal with that work and life and family balance as a filmmaker, that you don't want to give out your passion, but at the same time, as a freelancer as well,
right,
that you have to learn how to manage your time, how to make decisions?
Well, I can tell you that, that's a very complicated question, because when you're working 10 to 12 hours a day. You're also prepping the day before the shoot, so you have a couple hours of preparations that you're very kind of anxious about. Did you forget anything? You're going through your mental checklists, preparing your equipment for the next day. And if you're hiring, what I find myself that I'm somewhat responsible for hiring other crew members a lot of times. So, making sure that everybody has their proper call information, all that kind of stuff. So the work itself takes up a lot of mental capacity. But then what I try to do more of, and my wife calls me on it all the time, is to not answer the phone at the dinner table.
Okay.
Not respond to the text message right away when we're in the middle of something. So I'm trying to be more conscious. I'm very guilty and very terrible at actually separating the job from the life. It's something that I'm constantly working on.
It happens to me because I tell myself, if I don't answer now, then that producer or that company is going to go down the Rolodex.
Yeah, right. And I tell my wife the same thing. I think that it chips away at our commitment to our loved ones. They take offense because now you're telling them your work or your phone or your job or whoever is asking for your time is more important than them. So I'm trying to be more conscious about putting the phone down and giving my kid or my wife my full attention instead of half of my attention or a quarter of my attention. But I would say that, just making, if you're lucky, you're booked 10 days a month and you can make your bills and have a little bit extra play money. Especially in today's economy, it's kind of rough out there. If you do short form or one day interviews or short form content, or you're just doing kind of like what we do, where it's like marketing stuff or corporate stuff or doc stuff that's like short form, you do have a lot of time on your hands in the month. If you look at a month that's 30 days and you work 10, you have 20 days off. If you have a decent work-life balance. If you're on a TV show in a studio, you're probably working 20 to 25 days a month. And then you're home for the weekend only, or for the 2 days off that you're on a show. I've been on longer form shows, on reality shows, on docs, where you only get 2 days off a week.
Yeah.
And you do spend the better part of that first day sleeping because you're exhausted from working 12-hour days all week. And then you have a backlog of laundry and chores and dishes and whatever to do. So that's, I feel like that's always a challenge, right? It's how do you find the work-life balance? I think it really comes to putting the importance into it and kind of realizing that, your kids are only little once. Your marriage is only as good as you make it. Really, I think it comes from a place of you can't control what others do. The only thing you can control is what you do. And so if you're always putting your best self forward, you're always giving the best version of yourself, then you can have higher expectations for others because you expect the same thing from them. But if you're not giving it your all, or you're not putting your best self forward, then how can you demand those things from other people?
That's true. I find that there's also seasons,
Yeah.
There was a season where
summer we're dead, like July.
Yeah,
it was like,
but like also seasons in life, in the sense of like there was a time where my kids will demand time, but they wouldn't necessarily question or have expectations or want me to explain why, but now I'm in the stage where they're questioning. It's like, and then I have to have this conversation of this is the nature of the work that I do.
Man,
you see, it's like, and I'm finding understanding, like
questioning thing.
Yeah, they understand that I don't go to a 9-to-5 job, that I could be called to go to another city and be out for 3-4 days, but that it doesn't happen every single week.
Right. It's 1 week a month.
Yeah. And so we're getting into this understanding of like, oh, I know that the nature of my dad's work is different from, the regular standard.
Sure. I tell my kid this all.
And then
the constant conversation I'm having with my two boys now. My two boys, Ethan and Luke, they're 10 and 8. I'm telling them now, hey, Papa doesn't have a 9-to-5 Monday through Friday, and you're lucky because I can pick you up from school. I can take you to school. I can go to baseball practice. I can go to the games if I'm not working on a Saturday, and I can kind of be as involved as possible. But then, like, hey, I got to go to Augusta, Georgia for 5 days to shoot a basketball tournament for NBA TV. Oh, Papa's leaving.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, but I'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're cool with it, and it's fine. And actually now we just got my oldest a flip phone, so I could call him if my wife's on the other line or something. So there's always an open line of communication. My kids have Kids Messenger. Okay. So like I can always kind of get a hold of them if I'm not around. But I make a point to at least reach out to them if I'm traveling for work, at least once a day, that I'm calling them or I'm looking for them, or at night I'm calling to say goodnight to them before they go to sleep, because I can't go a day without talking to them.
Okay.
More, and like if I can't go a day without talking to them, I can't imagine how they feel. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because, your parents are your heroes when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Right? They're the 90% of your world comes from your parents. I mean, until you discover friends and have an identity of your own, you're kind of under your parents' wing. And so to lose a parent for 3 or 5 or 4 months at a time or whatever it is, there's a toll there you're taking on that kid. Yeah. I had a job for History Channel, Forged in Fire. I worked for them for 5 seasons. As the shooter producer, I would go to the house of the blacksmith and film the guy making a sword in 4 days in his garage as a one-man band with a production assistant that was taking the media. I'd make them a camera assistant before the day was over. And I was on this second or third season, I forget, it was season 6 or 7. I that was like my longest job that year. And it was like 6 months on the road throughout the full year. My kid was in kindergarten at the time, and I would get phone calls that on the playground, he was behind a tree crying because Papa was not home.
Wow.
So, I mean, I could say a lot of things about like, oh, I wish I worked for Disney or Marvel. We live here in Atlanta. Why aren't we on union sets? But those guys don't see their kids. They lose the first marriage. Or their second, or their
third, yes.
Sure, they put kids through school and they have a pension to go to, but did they have a life? I know they have an IMDb. So,
well,
I don't know. I guess it's like, pick your poison. Do you want to be like in South Hollywood, Atlanta, Georgia, making movies day in, day out, in trailer studios? I'd love the opportunity. But at what cost?
Yeah.
You're there for 10, 12 hours a day. you're on a show for 3 months, so you get 1 day off a week, maybe 2.
Mm-hmm. And then you're also affected by things that are, directly compromising that stability, and sometimes you don't develop the tools to cope with times where there's a strike or where there's gaps.
Yeah.
While you're a freelancer, you're all the time kind of finding ways to.
Well, because you have to be, as a freelancer. So I have my hand in a bunch of little pots.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it in one big one. We work as freelancers based on our reputations.
Yes.
All we are is glorified button pushers.
Mm-hmm.
We're not making life-saving medicines. We're not discovering new things in the ocean. We're not changing humanity. We're just working like everybody else. So we have a cooler job than the guy that works at the bank. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's neat that you get to put $200,000 on your shoulder if you're lucky. Mm-hmm. But it takes 15 years to get there, to have... I think what I'm getting at is trust.
Mm.
Carlos Andres Cuervo is trusted to operate camera. Scott Wellington is trusted to operate camera and light and do interviews and stuff like that. It takes a long time to build that trust. That's what I think.
Yeah, and going back to that work and life balance, a new stage that I'm at is involving my kids with things related to what I do. And so, with Lucas, we're starting a podcast where he reviews gear, and Sophia wants to have her own show
on YouTube,
where she shares stories, like folk stories
on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah. And so it's interesting because I also see you very involved with your kids and leading them to this is what I do, but let's do it together and let's find a time where we can share.
My kids wanted to do a video game playing. The content they consume on YouTube is grown men like us,
like the Twitch
playing video games with their little thing on a green screen and the video game going on in the background, like this, right? Yeah. But there'd be a video game behind us, right? We'd be playing. We'd be talking about how whatever's
like combos, right? And whatever they're using.
And I just number one, I'd rather see them play the video game than them watch somebody else play the video game. I'm totally, that South Park episode is 100% correct.
Yeah.
And number two is I don't want to put out content if I'm the one who's going to help them make it, right? Because I'm the one with the gear and the knowledge of how to shoot and edit video. I'm not going to put out content that I wouldn't want them to watch and I wouldn't want other kids to watch. So I don't think this whole thing of, I know it's super popular and it's what's making the views on YouTube, but I don't subscribe to these grown men playing video games because it's just, sure, I wish I thought of it first, but so maybe there's a little jealousy there, but no.
It could also be a fad, it goes away and then we see the repercussions of what content does on people as well.
Yeah, it's addictive, for sure. No, but I want to do something with my kids where it's where we're going to do a prank thing.
Okay.
So they're at the age where they're getting into their own little personalities. So I'm going to start a YouTube channel with my kids called InnoPrank, and we're going to do innovative pranks.
Yeah.
That are a little science and a little fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And it's a way to not only have them do something productive with their time, getting to know and understand the kind of environment that we work on, but also getting that one-on-one time that you can spend with them.
Are you going to pre-plan your stuff with your kids to where you have is it your TV mind is taking over, your film mind's taking over, and you're oh, we're going to have a season and we're going to plan 8 or 10 episodes on paper before we film any, because that's where I'm at.
Yeah, of course.
Before we film anything, we're going to plan it.
Yeah, well, of course. Especially when the time is a commodity, and you want to make sure that it's productive. And I think the experience that you have as a video person, as a filmmaker, as a producer, all that comes into play on every single project that you're doing. And the more experience you have, you can apply it to even your own projects. I created this space to do these talks with my friends because I knew that there was something in our conversations when we're not on set that was very enriching, that I could talk to my friends about my struggles, about my situations, and they're going through something similar. But it wasn't until I faced that and I start sharing that I discovered another side of my friends that I didn't know. if I was only relating to them in the circle of
you're not the only vulnerable person in the world.
Yeah,
what I think that we have a hard time comprehending as human beings is that we're all in this human experience together, and that everyone else experiences the same emotions that we do, right? Everyone else is nervous when they go somewhere new. Everyone else is, at least that I know that are freelancers, is worried about where their next paycheck is coming from, right? And especially freelancers now in today's film economy are really worried about where their next job is coming from. So all that's super unnerving, and I think it's not healthy, mentally healthy for us to like have this kind of stress.
And sometimes we have those conversations one-on-one, but there's a whole audience that fantasize the film industry, and glorifies the movie scene. But there are things behind it that we need to address in our lifestyles, and things that might not be as glamorous, but also ways that each of us are working on making things better. You present yourself as a very positive person, and there is a whole group of people in the film industry, especially coming from certain backgrounds, that are actually cranky gigs,
Man,
and you're don't touch my sign, this and that. You're like,
the jaded filmmaker is a stereotype that I do not subscribe to. Like, I love you guys, you're awesome, you're great at your craft, but I really do think that there are two choices in life. And I'm going to boil this down as simply as I can put this. You can either choose to be happy, or you can choose to be miserable. They both take the same amount of effort.
It's like the muscles you use to smile or the muscles you use to frown. You're still going to use your muscles.
Right. And so you could choose to be Captain Angry Pants, or you can choose to be a cheerleader. They both take the same amount of effort. And I feel like, if you choose happiness, if the glass is half full, right? Life is just better. I like to have fun. I like to joke around. I like to laugh. I like to be happy. I like to be fulfilled and content with my choices. So not just life, not just work, but both should be fulfilling and make me content. And so I'm going to approach the situation that's going to make it fun for everyone around me because I'm having fun. And so if you're going to be like jaded and just like miserable, then why are you doing this? You're just there because that's what's paying your bills and that's all you know. But do you remember why you picked up a camera or a light stand in the first place?
Yeah.
Do you know how lucky you are to be in that spot? Do you know how many people would actually kill you for the job that you're at right now?
And in fact, that we're in this country where you have access to a lot of this knowledge and tools. For me, growing up in Colombia, I didn't have access to these things.
Kids today can make a movie with their iPhone and nothing else.
Yeah.
I had my parents' VHS-C video camera making movies, editing on a reel-to-reel. So, yeah, they've got it made now.
Yeah.
And, I really think that because the ability to do things so cheaply is there, that content matters more than ever. Like, the quality of the content, the quality of the writing, what you're saying in the story itself, because you boil us down to an essence, we are storytellers. The story itself is what should drive the product, not the visuals, not the edit style, not the wardrobe or the makeup. It should be the story.
It's just that the same marketers that we work for creating products or advertising for products, they sell us back the idea that if you don't have this product and if you don't have the latest and greatest, you're not validated as a legit filmmaker.
Sure. Yeah, the camera cycle. Every 2 years, a new camera.
Yeah, or lenses, or even if you don't take this course, if you're not up to speed with AI, then you're left behind. And
AI is a scary thing, my friend. They took our jobs,
this is coming from the positive guy.
No, AI is a scary thing because, I mean, like Sora 4.0. Have you seen this stuff? Like the videos are getting
the runway stuff
realistic,
is insane. Yeah.
So who knows how long we get to be glorified button pushers for? Pretty soon they're just going to push a different button, and it's going to be the one to write the video on code.
But it's through these conversations that I also find, like what you were saying, deciding to be happy, and being positive, And another tool that I see you implementing is saying yes to things, because sometimes we get in our comfort zone.
Yeah, you have to say yes. Like, look, opportunity only knocks so many times, right? It could be less of a rate than you want. It could be not ideal circumstances. You could work on Christmas. It really doesn't matter. If you say no, that producer's not going to call you back. That project's never going to come back, and you're never going to get that opportunity. So I feel like saying yes to whatever it is, every relationship, every yes that I've said has led to some sort of recommendation in the future. Some sort of, either it's something from my reel, or it's something from my resume, or it's a new friend that I've made because of somebody I met on set. It always leads to some sort of opportunity. And I think one of the secrets to being happy or being a positive person is to find those opportunities. It's almost like I'm gamifying reality. I'm always looking for those opportunities. And the brain's a funny thing. It'll point out things to you if you look for them, right? Your perception of reality. Like, let's say you're looking at a red car. You're driving down the street. You want to buy a red car. Now, when you're driving down the street, all you see are the red cars, right? And so it's one of those things where if you look for it, it'll reveal itself to you, right? And so if somebody gives you an opportunity and you say yes, you can look for all of the opportunities that positive connection brought in your direction. So again, it's a matter of operating from this perspective of gratitude, right? I'm grateful I'm here. I'm grateful I'm alive. I should be dead. I was hit by a truck 50 years ago. And I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful I have a home. And I'm just grateful the sun is still shining and the sky has not fallen yet. So, again, it takes the same amount of effort to be happy that it does to be miserable. And I choose to put my stack of chips on happy.
Before I forget, I really would love for you to tell me the story of how you got married within the context of a reality show, because that's insane.
All right. The year was 2004, and I was just starting to work as a production assistant in TV production on commercials. Shout out to Kim Haggerty for giving me my first opportunity as a PA, a paid production assistant on a TV show, on a Canadian lottery commercial. And so I was just starting to freelance, and my wife finds a Craigslist posting. This is back when Craigslist was a thing before Facebook. My wife finds this posting on Craigslist because I think she was looking for me for work, or she was looking for, and she finds a posting on Craigslist that says casting couples looking to get married in the fall for a makeover reality show. And she read this to me, and I said, whatever. And my wife's a writer. So she wrote an extraordinary email about how the Jew, the Cuban, and the gay best man were going to get married, have a wedding in Miami. And of course we were casted because that's the three minorities that run Miami, are the gays, the Jews, and the Cubans. And so 2004, she got a video camera in the mail, mini DV camera in the mail, and started filming me at home under the guise of we won a sweepstakes for Home and Garden magazine, which, by the way, doesn't exist. It's Garden Home. And my father got a camera to start filming my mother, and her mom also was on the show. And so they came to Miami. They secretly filmed us for like a week or something like that. They cast us in the show. They flew us to New York, and they surprised us in a hotel. You can go watch the 2004 wedding special on TLC. It's called What Not to Wear with Stacey and Clinton.
Oh my!
And so they made us over for like a week in New York, and then we came home and they filmed our wedding, and I partied with the director till like 9 o'clock the next morning. He was so cool. He bought us a bottle at a club. He was a super nice guy, Rashid Daniel. He's an EP now, and we still keep in touch. He's a great guy. And so the producer, there's no directors on reality shows, they're all producers, but he was in essence a director of the show. Was like a year older than me. I was 25, getting married. He was 26, and coming from a kid who had a camera in his hands since he's 15, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I think again, it's the universe like showing you signs. If you look for signs, they're everywhere.
She said yes to an ad.
She said yes to an ad, and it turned into a TV show. And then I looked at this guy who was directing the show, and I was like, I want to be where he's at. And 2 weeks later, I was working at the New Times at the time, the paper. And 2 weeks later, I get fired. And I looked at my new wife. They gave me a severance for the first time in my life. And I said to her, it was like a month's salary. I said to her, if I don't go look for work in production right now, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. So she said, okay, go get the production guide. Back when I was 25 years old, there was a production directory that was printed with a spiral bound on the back of it. It was all just a phone book.
Kind of like white pages.
White pages for the industry. And so I just started cold calling production managers, production coordinators, producers. And back then I had to fax half of my resumes.
Wow.
It was half fax and half email. The ones that took email are the ones that called me back. But that's what led to that Canadian lottery commercial for my first job. It was picking up that phone directory and going through the motions of cold calling people to see like, hey, can I get a job? And 20 years later, and I'm still cold calling people, wow. Hey, can I get a job? I mean, the difference is now I have a reel and a resume to show for it and a website, but like, you know, like some things don't change, I guess. And so I think a couple things there, right? Like, it's cool I got married on a TV show. It's cool. It's 20 years later. Yes, we're still married. Coming up 20 years this year in November. And no, we didn't get married just for the reality show. We were dating for like 5 years. She got us casted on the reality show. But it was a lot of fun. And it brings back a lot of good memories. We've lost both our moms since then. So it was really nice to have that core memory with both of them there on that show and getting made over and getting treated like queens for the day. And it was a lot of fun. It was fun. And we went to New York, I think, the year after. We were recognized in the streets by people and stuff like that.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, like, it was cool. The funniest thing was one of my friends sent me dubbed in Spanish because they played it in like 50 different countries, in different languages. So yeah, that's funny. Dubbed all over the world. Yeah. So Stacey and Clinton are getting a reboot on Amazon, I think, to do like What Not to Wear Again. I'm thinking about writing them an email and being like, it's time to make us over again 20 years later. Yeah.
That's funny. That's cool in how, you know, that small story really represents, you know, a lot of the things that we've been talking, you know, taking those opportunities, saying yes, the fact that you did it, you know, starting your family and that your wife was there with you, supporting you, writing, you know, it's pretty
because of her.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of my life is because of her. Like, I really think that picking the right partner in life has a lot to do with your outcome, like, or your trajectory. You need a supported partner, because if you don't, your life's gonna be miserable, right? It's like you spend so much time at work. When you get home, you want it to also be a positive place. You want your house to be kind of like your sanctuary, right? And you can't have that if your partner is upset with you, right? If they don't support, you know, if they don't understand the long hours or the time away or the time that you actually have to dedicate to like socializing with crew, because that's how you get more jobs, is if you make friends. We were talking about clicks. I've mentioned this several times over our conversation about clicky clicks. I mean, we're in a click right now, right? And so, you know, you need time to develop and foster those relationships too, unfortunately. And times that one commodity we don't get more of, right? And so we have to be careful managing it, I think. We tend to waste a lot of it, and once it's gone, we don't get it back.
And part of the process of going through all of that and learning through those lessons and applying the lessons that you learn through your work also gives you the ability, you know, as you mature, to say yes to things that are not necessarily film related, you know, doubling into maybe entrepreneurship or starting your own business, and you're now in a stage where you're expanding and taking what you've learned as a producer, taking what you know, because sometimes we get to jobs where we're talking about medical stuff, where we're talking about technology, when we're talking about politics. Like, it really expands your universe, and then maybe you can tap into that and create something from that experience.
Sure. I've had the opportunity to film a fire gel that puts out fires, or a water purification plant that's like portable and the size of a tractor trailer. So like, these are things that I'm like, oh, I should invest in this technology because this is going to change the world. Like,
or start my own stuff.
Right. And on that note, I am in the process of starting a tech company myself.
Cool.
To see where it goes. It's in the NFC space. I don't really want to talk about it right now, just because I don't want to give away the cart before the horse kind of thing. I'll be back to talk about it. How's that?
Cool.
But yeah, I think that because we've run our own business for so long that those skills transfer. The point of getting up and making my calls and seeing which producer needs me and what invoice needs to be tended to or sent out or what quotes can I send, all that's the same for an entrepreneur starting a business. So that transfers. I think those skills transfer outside the film industry. And if you're considering starting a business outside the film industry or doing something else, we have the time because we're freelancers. We can make our own time. The money may not be there, but the time's there. Yeah. And I think money comes after the fact. So like if I treat a business like I would treat a show pitch. Like I'll build a deck that doesn't cost me anything but time and writing. And I'll put together, for lack of a better description, a PowerPoint presentation or a PDF on the idea. And then I will go and try to get either technology people involved or money people involved, or maybe they're the same person. But there are ways to raise funds or raise capital, just like you would do for a movie, for a business idea. And I encourage anyone to go out and make another source of income, especially passive income, because of how unstable, this journey that we're on is.
Yeah. And getting to the technology world might be like an unknown or might be something new for you, but you're saying that many times is confronting things with a positive attitude that attracts these things, almost like the universe responds to that.
Absolutely.
But I equate that to almost risk equates to
reward.
Faith.
There's no success without risk. Life is scary. We can all be agoraphobics and stay at home and be shut-ins all day and nothing will happen to us and we will die alone and miserable. You wouldn't have all this awesome equipment if you didn't go out of your comfort zone and take a couple risks, right? Yeah. So, I really think that anything that's worth doing there's a certain risk to it, always. And so you have to take those risks. And so it's going to be scary. Like the unknown is always scary. We cannot control or factor the unknowns, but we can control how we react and how we respond and how we process those things. And if that means stepping outside and taking a few deep breaths and like screaming into a pillow or whatever it is, it's okay. Everyone processes these things differently, but I think facing those risks head on and dude, you just got to throw darts. You got to throw darts and eventually you'll hit a bullseye. No matter if it's movies or if it's tech or if it's starting a car wash business, it doesn't matter what it is. If you keep at it and it's perseverance, it's persistence. It's like the actors that fall out of Hollywood. Oh, this newly discovered actor. What they don't tell you is that they were auditioning for 10 years and did 3-bit parts, right? They stuck with it, right? Until they were discovered. Yeah. Right? It's about consistency and repetition and not giving up. And I think that thick skin, I don't know, we haven't really talked about that, but you end up growing one pretty quickly in this production and in this industry. And I think that's another thing that transfers outside of production is life, man. You got to have a thick skin. You got to have resilience. And if you don't have those things, you're going to cry in a corner somewhere. And you have two choices. You could be the guy that cries in the corner, or you could be the guy facing life head on with a big ass smile on your face. Which do you? I'm that guy. I'm the doofy dog running down to catch the stick. I'm happy go lucky, and it's because it's a conscious decision. It's a choice that I've made. It's like, I want this, I'm going for it. And people can say I'm crazy. People can say I'm all over the place. I don't care. Like, and if I get told no, I'm going to reassess and try again. Like, that's all we can do is keep throwing darts.
Yeah, that's great. One area now I would love to touch this before we finish our conversation is that you have also seen the value of taking care of your health, taking care of not only your physical health, your mental health, and also tap into resources that are helping you to not only make money, but also be healthy, especially with 20 years of working in this industry. Sometimes you get tired. Sometimes even from operating, you're never going to be the same like healthy person.
I'm gonna attribute my demeanor to yoga. Okay, yoga's the one thing that I was hit by a truck in 2008. I don't know if anybody knows this story or not, but I was operating camera on a TV show called Speeders Fight Back for True TV, for Court TV back when it was turning to True. And they said, go outside and get some B-roll. And I went outside and I threw a camera on my shoulder. I went to a median of a 6-lane highway and I got some traffic passing in front of the traffic court. It was a great shot. And then a feeder band whipped through, a big thunderstorm went through, and I picked up my camera and tripod and I looked both ways and I ran across the street and I got smacked by the mirror of an F-150 and I broke 7 ribs and a hip and my ankle and it cracked my skull on the windshield. And so 14 broken bones, collapsed lung, day 3 of production. Mind you, I was the unofficial fixer. It was all my friends on the crew, all the camera operators, the sound guy. They're all my buddies in Miami. Danny Velasquez, Cameron Boy So, Rob Sayer, Eric Mormon, like Frank Collins. A bunch of my friends were on this show. Justin Marks, a bunch of great Miami camera guys and audio guys. And they were, they all kind of came to my rescue. I don't really remember any of this. And then the first thing I remember saying to the producer when I came to in the ER, in the trauma unit, was, is the camera okay? And that's when the producer knew that I wasn't A, suicidal, right? I didn't throw myself into traffic. And B, it wasn't like a con job. Like I was like actually concerned, like, did I lose my job, right? Kind of thing. Did I do my job okay? Now, that was a total space cadet ADD moment where I should have been looking where I was going, but I was more concerned for the safety of the camera. And I think this happens a lot of times, right? Camera guys are more concerned for the equipment than they are their own health and safety. And so the other thing I think that was kind of like divine intervention, if I may, really quickly, like sidestep here. If I was one step further in the street, the truck would have ran me over.
Yeah.
It swerved to the last second and it clipped me with the mirror. The camera could have decapitated me, like the tripod could have just snapped my neck. Like so many things could have been different. I left that accident with no nerve damage, no brain damage, other than the brain damage that was already there from living through the 90s. And I spent 6 months getting better, going to physical therapy, and then through that I discovered yoga, and that's really what brought my strength back and my core back. And I've been practicing ever since. That was 15 years ago. And yoga is the one thing that I'm always doing. Like even on set, I'm like doing yoga stretches, or if I'm operating, or I'm doing it 2 to 3 times a week in my own house, like before I go to work or when I come home. Even if it's just like a short little 15-minute session, it's just the one thing that like keeps me like limber and a little strong. Like I grew up taking Ritalin from the time I was 8 to the time I was 18. And I'm really kind of against giving kids methamphetamines. It's caused permanent nerve damage to my hands, and I have permanent hand tremors because I feel like I was given stimulants the time that my entire nervous system was developing, and that's had lasting effects. So I just feel like there's other solutions out there that we're not really exploring because they're not profitable. And that health shouldn't really be a business of profit as much as it should be a business of humanity.
Yeah.
Like what's best for us as people versus what's best for the pharmaceutical companies' pockets.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that you share, your story and how, being healthy also is important. Not just making money, going in the rat race, but your family, your health. These are things that as filmmakers, we also need to take into account.
Sure. I think sleep is super important. I have a really hard time doing that. Yeah. So I think, coming into a sleep routine and figuring that out is a big hurdle that I'm constantly having to readjust my approach to because of being so, anxious or hyperactive. Sleep is not, something that comes easy. So something I'm always working on. It's a big part of mental health too, I think, is the amount of sleep you get.
That's true, because by dreaming, you also kind of disconnect and also rewire things, and your subconscious, process things that maybe you're not able to process when you're awake. So I think that is one of the benefits and the important things and the necessary things of us.
I've been taking a nootropic, a supplement called Lion's Mane for about a year now, year and a half. And that's the one side effect that I love from Lion's Mane is that I've started to dream again. I take it for concentration and focus, and I've noticed that it's given me my short-term memory back. So now I remember if I left the memory card in the card reader on the computer, or if it's in the case, or where my keys and phone are. These are very important things.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that short-term memory back, and it's nice to dream again.
But even dreaming for storytellers is an asset, you know?
Yeah, I want to do a short film about companies selling you your dreams. So like, I don't know if you know this, but Apple has done a new patent where they can read your thoughts they can read your brain waves with AirPods, the new generation of AirPods that are coming out. And so they're going to be able to tell with your earpods in whether or not you like the video you're watching by scanning your brain with these earpods.
Okay.
So that's where advertising is headed, in case you're wondering where metrics are going. So I want to do this story where they're selling you your dreams, where you can go on an app and you can buy a dream. Wow. That's going to be my one of my first shorts as a
Okay, we just went full Black Mirror.
Yeah, full Black Mirror. I mean, that's where we're headed, right?
Yeah, it's so close to reality.
So close.
Yeah, but it's awesome that we set aside this time to talk. I think learning from each other is very important, and I appreciate that you came in.
I thanks for having me. I appreciate the admiration and respect is mutual, my friend.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to our next collaboration together. And I think that doing this is really important, that you can tell people who work in this industry or who are wanting to work in this industry that it's important to have a life outside of it. That, I mean, most of my friends work in the industry, but when we get together, we're not talking about work. No. At all, right?
We play class.
Yeah, play games. We talk about our families. We drink beer. We eat good food. We talk about a lot of food, right? And we're all foodies, and I think just enjoying life in general, right, is a big plus, you know, because again, there's only two choices. You can choose to be happy, or you can choose to be miserable.
That's
pick one. It's the red pill or the blue pill, right?
Yep. And if you choose to stay throughout this conversation, I will really encourage you to share it and find the value and share the value of these conversations that I have with my friends. I will see you in the next episode of Beyond the Scenes.